Hey guys, in today's video I'm going to be going over a lot of things that can help you become a better Warzone player, especially if you're someone who is new to the game. I somewhat recently started playing the game myself about 2 weeks ago, although I am someone who's played Call of Duty for several years and has played BRs like Fortnite or PUBG in the past as well. So this video I'm going to be going over as much information as I can to help you get acclimated with the game if you are a new player. If you guys do find this video helpful or informative, please do remember to give it a like and subscribe if you would like to see more Warzone content from me. So, like I basically just said, this video is geared towards new players. If you're someone who's already very good at the game or someone who's been playing for a long time, a lot of these things might not really be that relevant to you. There will be timestamps in the description below to the different topics I cover. So check that. You can skip around throughout the video or just watch whatever part you think is relevant to you. Like, for example, settings, loadouts, contracts, movement, mid-game tips, late-game tips, early-game tips, all of that, there will be timestamps for in the description, so you can skip around to the different parts if you want to do so. And I know this will be a long video, so not everybody will want to watch it in one sitting. The first thing we're going to talk about is settings, and this is something that can be pretty complicated for a lot of people. A lot of it comes down to preference, but there are some things that are just strictly better, or certain things that I'm going to, say, this mindset might be better for settings. As far as I know, the square minimap is the best way to go because it gives you more vision. The edges aren't cut off like it would be with the circle minimap, so you definitely want to do the square minimap. For your FOV, if you play on PC, you're going to want to use between 90 to 100. I think a lot of players play on 100. I personally play on 100. Somewhere around there is a good range, and this is something that I didn't personally know about at first because I've never played a game where you can change FOV. Fortnite was pretty much the only game I played on my PC. And if you do change the FOV and you play controller, you want to make sure that you turn on scale aim assist with FOV. That way, changing this FOV doesn't mess up your aim assist. As far as button layouts go, if you play controller, and pretty much all of this video is going to be from a controller player's perspective, so if you play keyboard, I'm sorry. I don't really know anything about playing keyboard. But most of you are going to want to go to tactical button layout. I play default because I play claw and I've played claw for a long time. But what tactical will allow you to do is drop shot or lay down without taking your thumb off the analog stick, and we'll get to that later on in the video. For automatic sprint, automatic tac sprint is what I use. For tap to slide, that's definitely, you want tap to slide on. For use/reload behavior, you definitely want contextual tap, and this is something that I wanted but couldn't personally find at first. What this will do is make it to where when you want to open a chest or when you want to pick up a weapon or pick up a piece of equipment, you just have to tap your pickup button rather than holding it for a set time. It makes looting so much nicer. For motion blur, you're going to want all of that off. Motion blur, film grain, you're going to want those things off. It just makes the game muddier or weirder to look at, and you're going to miss some information that you wouldn't if you had these settings off. So make sure you have motion blur off. And that's going to be it for settings. Sensitivity, all of that stuff comes down to preference. I play on 6, but it's just preference, and you can look around at a bunch of different people's settings. There's not one sensitivity that everybody uses. A lot of people are in the 6 or 7 range, and then you have someone like Mutex who plays on max sensitivity, I believe. So there's not one sensitivity that's just going to make you a good player in this game. It really just comes down to preference and what feels good to you. Same thing with standard, dynamic, linear, or the different types of aim assist. That just comes down to preference, and it just comes down to what you want. There's good players on everything. It's not one option is significantly the way to go over everything else. So that's going to be it for settings. Now we're going to get onto contracts. If you do not know what contracts are, they're little missions that you can do to earn money and some other benefits upon completion. And money in this game is really important. You're going to be able to buy loadouts, UAVs. You're going to be able to buy your teammates back if they die. You can buy armor plates. There's lots of things you can purchase. So getting money is pretty integral to Warzone. The recon objective or the recon contract, you have to go to a specific marked location on the map, and it has this little flag. I'm going to try to have the icons on screen as well because I didn't personally know which contract was which on the minimap for a day or two, and it was bad. I don't know why it took me that long to figure that out, but the recon one is this little flag. You got to capture the point, and when you do so, you'll be given money. You usually get some plates and a weapon from doing so, and then you also get to see what the next circle is, and this is actually really beneficial if you want to win games. You could do these recon contracts, and you get information as to where the next circle is, and then you can position yourself accordingly. And these stacks, if you do 3 recon contracts all in the same zone, you'll see 3 zones ahead of where you currently are. So I definitely recommend doing these recon contracts if you can. You have the scavenger contracts. These are marked with a little magnifying glass. And when you pick this up, you'll have to open special crates. You'll get money and usually some decent weapons and an upgraded vest when you open the last one, which allows you to carry extra plates. This one just gives you a lot of money. I like to do it if I'm coming off of the gulag. If I can pick up a scavenger contract, we're going to get a decent amount of money from just opening the chests. And then upon completion, you also get a good amount of money. You get that upgraded plate carrier, which allows you to carry extra plates. And one nice thing is these chests aren't spawned in for anybody else. Only the people with the contract can open these chests. So it's really nice if you're coming off spawn in the gulag to get this and get loot that nobody else will have taken, because it just can't be taken. You have the bounty, which you just have to kill a marked opposing player. This is pretty nice. It shows you where somebody is, so if you want to play aggressive and go for kills, which is what I like doing, you can pick up bounties. They also give you a lot of money, and there's things you can do off spawn that I personally do, but we'll get to that later in the early game tips when it comes to these bounties. The most wanted contracts makes you marked for everybody on the map, and if you survive that duration, you're given money for surviving, and all of your teammates that are currently dead and spectating respawn for free. So if you're the only person in your squad and you don't want to get money to buy people back, this could be a good option, although it is very risky, and I don't personally find myself doing the most wanted contracts really ever. Finally, we have the supply run contract. This, you just have to make it to a marked buy station in time. And for this, you're given money and a discount at that specific buy station. Pretty nice to be able to buy things for cheaper. You get money for doing so. This is another thing that I don't really do too often, because I usually want to rotate in a specific way to try to find players and kill them. But it can definitely be good if you're coming off spawn. Maybe you only have like $4,000 to your name or something. You've looted a little bit. You can pick this up, go to that buy station. You'll get money for going there. And then you also get the discount and you can buy more things. Contracts, more contracts spawn after each zone. So if you're in second zone and then you make it to third zone, there will be more contracts that spawn on the map for you to be able to do. And then also, as you complete contracts, you get bonus money for completing like multiple contracts in a row. So I think like the first contract you do, you get a 40% bonus money on the next contract, and then after you do that one, you get like 80%, I believe. So as you do contracts, you get more money and more reward for doing contracts. So I definitely suggest doing contracts, and this is something we'll get to later on in the video when we get to like mid game, early game, late game tips, etc. For the next thing, we have loadouts. These are your custom classes, and I'm not going to go too much in detail on this because there's like a ridiculous amount of loadout videos already for Warzone on YouTube, and I couldn't be able to get into like anything super specific. If you want like the best Growl loadout or the best MP5 loadout, just look that up on YouTube, work for those attachments, and then make that loadout. I just wanted to say that you're given a free loadout towards the end of first zone and towards the end of fifth zone. Normally, it costs 10,000 points to buy one unless there is a fire sale or a discount you get from a supply run contract. So it costs 10,000 to buy one. You're given a free one at first zone and fifth zone. For perks, I really want to use Ghost, and what a lot of people do is they get their first loadout and usually they try to buy one before the free one, and they either get overkill on that loadout and then get Ghost out of their second loadout, or they just get 2 Ghost loadouts. Usually I just get 2 Ghost loadouts because I want to have Ghost as early as possible for solos. But you can carry 2 primary weapons without overkill. You just can't have 2 primary weapons in the same loadout without overkill. So you want to like make sure you get 2 primary weapons and Ghost is basically what I'm saying. But that's just going to come down to how you play the game. And like I said, there are countless loadout tips on YouTube. I just wanted to recommend that you have Ghost and just remind you when the free loadouts spawn, because I didn't know that they were at set times for a little while when I started playing the game. The next thing I want to talk about is movement and movement tips in game. And this is going to go into gunfighting tips later, but slide canceling is something that's pretty important in Warzone. And the way you do this is you slide, and then jump. So the first thing you do, and this is why you want to have tap to slide on, it makes it a lot easier. You hit your slide, and then shortly after that, you hit your slide again. This stops your slide, and then you hit your jump button pretty much immediately after you cancel the slide. And what this is going to do is it's going to get you out of crouch. Normally, if you're standing, your jump button makes you jump, But if you're not standing, your jump button makes you go to standing. So if you do this in quick succession, your character slides and you don't really lose any momentum, because if you just do a full slide, you lose a lot of momentum at the end and you're a little bit slow to start up. And then if you just slide, cancel, and don't do the jump, then your character's crouched and there's like a brief delay between you getting up and actually going again. But if you slide, jump, slide, jump button, you're not actually jumping. For me, it's BBA. So B is my slide button. I hit that twice and then I hit A. And you basically get the benefit of sliding, but you don't get any of the negatives, essentially. And that's what slide canceling is. And the next thing I want to talk about is just the cameras in Call of Duty. This is something that I already knew because I've played Call of Duty in the past. But if you go around a corner slowly, like I'm going to show an example on this. If you go around a corner like this, and this is how a lot of people will do things because they're cautious and they think this is like the safer play to make, you're actually griefing yourself because of the way cameras work in Call of Duty. The person going around the corner has an advantage because they know when they're going to go around the corner, right? But if you do this slowly and kind of creep over the corner, the player holding the angle, you kind of lose your advantage on them because they see you slowly coming. Whereas if you run and jump around the corner very quickly, not only does that player not get the slow creep of you and then get that information, you also really reposition very quickly in a way that they really won't predict if they're holding that angle. So that's what you want to do. That's like a really random thing to talk about, but just from playing the game, I know a lot of players take corners slowly, and that's not what you want to do. You're really griefing yourself by doing so because you're not abusing the way the cameras work in Call of Duty. And next we're going to talk about gunfighting tips. This kind of goes hand in hand with movement. But the first thing we're going to talk about is crosshair placement. You want to have your crosshair where you expect there to be players to be. If you're walking up to a house, just hold your crosshair at the window if you think someone's going to peek you at the window or the doorway or behind a box, whatever. Wherever you expect players to be, put your crosshair there. You don't necessarily need to aim all the time. Don't ADS all the time. But just keep your hipfire crosshair where you expect there to be players, because this is going to make your reaction time much faster. Like, let's say your crosshair is on the ground, which is something a lot of players do when they're like newer to shooters. If you keep your crosshair on the ground all the time, you have to pull it up and then adjust to where the person is. But if you already have your crosshair where you expect someone to be, or very close to where you expect someone to be, there's less adjustment you have to make when that player pops out. And this is just going to like make all of your gunfights much easier if you have good crosshair placement. Time to kill in Warzone is very fast, so oftentimes the player that knows about the fight first is going to win. And doing these little things like good crosshair placement is going to maybe keep you alive in situations where you would have died anyways, because milliseconds really matter in Call of Duty. Each gunfight is decided really, really fast, so anything you can do to give yourself little advantages has a huge impact. And that's why flanking is so effective in Call of Duty, and it's so effective in Warzone too. Something I should have talked about with loadouts is suppressors. You want to have suppressors on your gun, but pretty much every like loadout video you gotta watch it is gonna suggest suppressors, so it's really not that big of a deal. But flanking is really effective. If you can shoot people in the back, if you know about the fight first, you're probably gonna win it. Use cover as much as you can in gunfights. Sometimes you're gonna get caught off guard in areas without cover, and you're probably gonna die. But what you want to do in this game, and this is gonna take time and it's gonna take experience in game, but you want to be able to like position yourself around cover as soon as you get shot as fast as possible. Like, your sixth sense of knowing what the nearest piece of cover to you is actually really valuable in Warzone, and as you develop that, you're going to be a lot better. If you find yourself in a 50-50 gunfight, there's pretty much two things that you can do to give yourself an advantage and potentially win that gunfight, or maybe tip the scales in your favor. And those are jump shotting and drop shotting. And that's why I suggest you play on tactical, because it makes drop shotting very easy because you don't have to take your thumb off the analog stick to lay down. So drop shotting, jump shotting, both are very good. How I decide which one to do really just depends on momentum. If you're walking slowly or not really moving, drop shotting is probably the way to go. And in closer range fights, drop shotting helps. I mean, they both help in close range actually. But if you don't have any momentum as far as moving goes, then drop shotting is going to be the way to go. Because if you don't have momentum and you jump, your character just jumps straight up and you don't really go anywhere. And it doesn't really like change the target that your opponent is shooting at too much. It maybe might throw a few bullets off, but it doesn't really make as big of a deal as something like drop shotting does. So if you have no moving momentum or anything like that, then you want to drop shot. If you're already like mid sprint or moving decently fast or going around a corner like we talked about before, then you want to jump shot. If you have momentum, your jump shot gets like significantly more impactful because your character moves a lot more. Instead of just jumping straight up or moving a little bit to the side, you can actually cover vast distances with the jump. And bunny hopping is a thing in Modern Warfare. So as soon as you jump and then you land, you want to jump again and you get a little extra jump. That's another reason why you want to make sure you have that momentum, is because if you don't have any momentum, the bunny hopping doesn't really work. But if you have a decent amount of momentum and you jump to the side and then you jump again, you bunny hop on that second jump and you're just a really hard target for your opponent to track. And if you're hitting your shots while doing this, this is going to be hard to do if you don't have paddles. I'm not sure if bumper jumper is a layout in this game, but if you get used to jump shotting, or if you play claw like I do, this is why I started playing claw back in the day, so I could jump shot in games like Call of Duty and Halo. But if you have a lot of momentum and you pull off that jump shot and the bunny hop, like the person you're fighting is going to have a very hard time tracking you, and you're probably going to win that fight. Like we said before, milliseconds matter a lot in Call of Duty gunfights, and just a few bullets can decide the outcome of a gunfight. So if you make your opponent miss 4 to 5 shots by jumping or drop shotting, then you're probably going to be able to win that fight. So know when to jump shot, know when to drop shot. This will take some time to develop, like your sixth sense. Like we talked about the sixth sense with finding cover. Just knowing immediately and having like perfect instincts on when you should jump shot or when you should drop shot is going to take a decent amount of time. But once you get that down, you're going to be a much better player, and you're going to win a lot more gunfights in game. For early game tips, usually what I try to do is land where there's buy stations and contracts. I'm not going to really go into specific locations where you want to land. A lot of that is preference. I personally like Boneyard and Military Base a lot, but there's a lot of good locations in Warzone that you can land at. But what I want to do is I like to land where there's a decent amount of contracts and a buy station. What I want to do is get $4,000 as fast as possible, and then buy a UAV, maybe buy armor plates if I need them, if I get enough for that as well. And then we're going to kill everybody in the spawn area. Because early game, no one will have Ghost, because you need a loadout to get Ghost. If you get your UAV really quick, no one in your area is going to have Ghost. So you're going to be able to quickly just bully everyone out of your location and get rid of them. And this is not only going to get you a good amount of kills, it's potentially going to avoid deaths that you would have gotten otherwise, because you're not going to be getting caught off guard as much, since none of these players have Ghost. So I try to get a UAV as fast as I can, just rush everybody out of my location while doing contracts. I usually try to get a UAV and just do a bounty off spawn. Usually if you pick it up, it marks someone relatively close to you unless there's no one nearby. So it's going to usually give me somebody that's in the same POI as me. And then we just clear the area, get that bounty, maybe get more bounties, get our bonuses going. Just try to do as many bounties and kill as many people out of my spawn area as possible. And this is going to give you a good amount of money, typically, especially if you do a bounty or 2. If you do 2 bounties, you're going to be stacked on cash. And then what I want to do is I want to buy a loadout. I typically try to buy a loadout before that free loadout comes. I want that free loadout to be my second gun. And a lot of people, what they do is they get an overkill loadout first, and then their second loadout is Ghost. I don't necessarily do that. What I tend to do is get my Ghost Growl class first, and then I just run an MP7 secondary for the meantime. I just really value Ghost in solos. This might be different in squads, duos, trios, but I feel like for solos, getting Ghost as early as possible is important to me, and is like pretty important to playing aggressive, because if somebody knows you're coming on their UAV, like they're going to play more passive. They're going to try to catch you off guard, and I just want to avoid that stuff, so I try to get my Ghost loadout as fast as possible. And while the MP5, which is what I'll get from my second loadout, is nice, I don't feel like the difference between the MP7 and the MP5 is worth not having Ghost early game. So I just run an MP7 for the meantime and then get my MP5 loadout second. Like I said, after cleaning the POI and doing contracts, I usually have like 14k or more, which is enough to get a loadout and a UAV. And then I just spam UAVs and bounties most of the game. This is what you want to do if you want to get a lot of kills. If all you want to do is play more passive, then maybe run things like scavenger contracts and recon contracts. But if you want to get a lot of kills, then I definitely recommend just spamming UAVs and doing bounty contracts. As far as mid game goes, like I said, I just try to do contracts as much as possible. If you just want to win, do some recon contracts and find out as many zones as you can and position yourself accordingly. Make sure you've gotten like 2 primary weapons from loadouts plus ghost. But if you want to play aggressive, go for bounties, spam UAVs, just run around killing people. I usually run around until 3rd zone. What I struggle with the most is knowing when to play a bit more passive, because if you're just a maniac all the time, there's going to be players that catch you off guard, and that's usually going to be a death sentence in Warzone, especially in the solos. So around 3rd zone or so, I like late 3rd zone going into 4th zone is when I try to play a bit slower and think more about positioning. But if you just want to win, then you're probably going to do this earlier, and you're going to use those recon contracts to zone out as much as like future zones as you can, and then position yourself accordingly. Mid game is really just comes down to what you want to do. If you want to win, go for recons. If you want kills, go for bounties and just spam your UAVs and look for people. Also, loadouts. When that first loadout comes, the free one, lots of people, if you're in a populated area, their loadouts are going to spawn around you, so you can go around and get a lot of kills in those situations. For late game, this is something that's going to be like pretty random a lot of times at first. I've played a lot of BRs, but the BR I played the most was Fortnite. And while I was like 70th for most wins in Fortnite or something along those lines, late game was pretty hard for me because you couldn't build. But what I try to do is play edge of zone as much as I can. Make sure you have a gas mask. But the reason why you want to play edge of zone is because if there's no like really good areas in zone for you to play, like you just want to limit how many angles you have to worry about, right? Like if you think of yourself like a pie or like a circle, if like 45% of the circle behind you is zone, you don't really have to worry about that angle as much. While players can come through the zone with gas masks, you'll usually hear them coughing, and it'll be pretty obvious that it's happening. But if you can use the zone to just create angles that you don't have to worry about, things get a lot easier, especially if you have zone on one part and then like the edge of the map on another part of you. Then like you really only have to worry about like 180 degrees in front of you. You know what I mean? And this is what you want to do with cover as well. You just want to create as many angles that you don't have to worry about. Because if you are in a weird area where you have to worry about 360 degrees around you, like you could be shot from anywhere and you're probably going to die. I try to third-party fights in the late game as much as I can. And I try not to move if it's not necessary. And this is coming from someone who plays solos a lot, and there is moving zones. But a lot of time in solos, a lot of people are scared and they don't really make any plays. So if you're the only player going around making plays, let's say you're top 5 in a pretty small zone, and then you kill one player, right? All right. There was 4 people remaining, and now there's 3 because you killed 4 opponents, now 3 opponents. All 3 of those opponents are probably going to look to third party you because they were scared and not making plays. So from what I found a lot of times in solos, whoever makes plays first just gets third partied. So I try to just play for third party. Even if you have a suppressor, like this late in the game, these zones are pretty small. Like other people are going to see like or hear you shooting at people and know where you are. So try to remain calm. Don't get nervous. That's one of the biggest things. And that's something that's like really important for BRs is not getting nervous. You just got to relax and play correctly and make as many good decisions as you can. But I don't know. I feel like that just comes down to experience. The more you play, the less scared you're going to be, the better you're going to get, the more games you're going to win. A lot of people get very nervous early on when playing battle royales and like finally starting to make it to the top 10. Like I said, you definitely want to have a gas mask, and you can tank storm. It moves pretty slow late game. Like the moving zones, you can outwalk, I'm pretty sure. So it's not like you need to like worry about rotating 30 seconds in advance. Usually you can play like pretty slow in late game and still like capitalize on other people's mistakes, because other people are going to be nervous, other people are going to be scared. You just play to third party, capitalize on their mistakes, and you're going to get easy wins. And then sometimes in moving zones, I don't know why, but I've had a few games in solos where the people just die to storm. I don't even have to do anything. They just fail to rotate at all. So that's going to be it for this video. I hope you guys found it helpful or informative. If you did, please do remember to give it a like, subscribe if you would like to see more, and comment down below what you found most helpful. And if you have any questions, leave that in a comment and I will try my best to address it. Thanks for watching.
He's selfing. Got him.
Nice.